Have you ever wished that you could just skip all of your classes and focus on the more fun aspects of school? Well, now you finally can and live out your dream in both Dodgeball Academia and Home Run High. In the sports-blended RPG Dodgeball Academia, you play as a newly transferred student to the academy named Otto, who needs to build his team of dodgeball players while learning the ropes of how the school operates. You spend much of your time exploring the campus, talking to other students, completing side quests, and most importantly, competing in dodgeball matches. Home Run High is more of a management-style take on a sporting school video game. You coach and build up a baseball team full of new players by juggling their game schedule, training, and schoolwork, while also customizing the layout of their high school. Both games pull a ton of inspiration from a variety of other genres, but one clearly ends up being a more enjoyable experience, so let's see why. Dodgeball Academia can be best described as taking the general concept of a game like Golf Story, adding the humor and indie art style of Knights and Bikes, the gameplay of Windjammers, and then sprinkling in some elements of Pokemon. As weird as that all sounds, the result is a fantastic, polished, and original experience that honestly reminds me of why I try to play more unusual games in the first place, and in this case, I could not have been happier with the result. You begin your adventure as the new kid in school who snuck his way into getting enrolled. Many of the other students and competitors scoff at basically anything you do, and you have to prove them through your dodgeball skills and obsession that you belong with the best. It is a fairly typical storyline that doesn't create a ton of surprises, but it is handled with enough humor and thoughtfulness to keep you engaged throughout the entire story. Even if you kind of know how the story might end, they make the ride so incredibly fun along the way that it quickly becomes an addicting experience that I could not put down. The skepticism of the students towards you as the new kid builds some initial challenges right out the gate. Only a few characters are even willing to join you, but the ones that do, you become immensely loyal to and build some pretty hilarious relationships in the process. Once you gather your initial team, the game itself is played out over a series of days, all containing sandbox events that are triggered by the story. Besides the main quests, you are free to roam around the campus at will, taking on battles with random students, finding hidden items, recovering from battles at the infirmary, or shopping for new items, just to name a few. Anything you do circles back to building up your character's strength and powers to ultimately compete in the official tournament matches. The game does an incredible job of mixing up the formula just enough to keep things interesting. If you want to focus on honing in your dodgeball skills through battles, you can do that. If you want to complete every little goofy side quest that might have you digging in the trash for wallets, helping the lunch lady, or going to class, you can do that. If you just want to play the main story without exploring the campus a ton, you can do that too, even if that is not personally the way the game was meant to be played. Regardless, there is just so much enjoyment to be found through the 15 or so hour experience. I would be remiss to not take a brief moment and discuss the overall artistry of the game. The art style, music, writing, and overall vibe feels like it is a Saturday morning cartoon come to life. The end result is an incredibly charming affair that provides a ton of entertainment from start to finish and is honestly appealing to gamers of all ages. I do love the fact that you can pick up and throw dodgeballs anytime you want, a mechanic that was very reminiscent of Golf Story, one of my favorite Switch games. All of this combined with the complete technical polish of the game for me led to near video game perfection, which was incredibly refreshing, especially for something that I knew nothing about going in. Outside of the regular story, there is also a versus mode if you want to just play dodgeball battles with your friends. Unfortunately, there is no online, but the inclusion of the local multiplayer mode is a nice touch and helps hone in your dodgeball skills the gameplay of which is surprisingly deep. If the dodgeball mechanics were not great, that would in theory bring down the whole game, but luckily for us, that is 100% not the case. Beyond the basic dodge, throw, and catch maneuvers, a lot of thought went into the give and take style of dodgeball with different types of throws and charges affecting the result. You also have a variety of special abilities at your disposal, many of which are unique to specific characters, and the strategic element of figuring out which combination works best is a ton of fun. It works so incredibly well in a video game setting that I never know if I'm playing a sports game, a fighting game, or an RPG. The one thing I do know is that Dodgeball Academia is simply one of the most fun and original games I have played in a long time. Switching sports over to baseball, next up is Home Run High, a sports management simulator. While this ends up being a completely different style game than when compared to Dodgeball Academia, I did not know that before deciding to review these in tandem, and at least on the surface, they do have very similar themes. Despite also revolving around a specific sports-obsessed school, these could not be more different games, and you'll quickly see why here. Instead of being a main player or student at the school in Home Run High, you will take the more overseer task of building a baseball team and designing the school grounds that they play at. After getting your initial team of 9 baseball-playing students and a few basic facilities like a batting tee and stadium bleachers, other area teams began challenging you in games. These games are scheduled by yourself throughout the day as you balance your team's overall energy with how many games that they play. The students themselves are controlled automatically, both during baseball games and around the school grounds. Your job is to simply manage the team during the game, schedule games, and design your school in the process. Between games, you can do a few different things. You can spend time training your team using drills to focus on specific pitching or hitting stats, or compete in various school-related activities to give yourself stat boosts. As you gain money from winning games or completing goals from the principal, you can also expand your school or build more buildings and facilities. Each new building gives you a different bonus and generally focuses on either academics or athletics. The gameplay arc of playing games, recruiting and training players, and expanding the school quickly falls into place as you proceed through the months. The concept and premise of Home Run High is a decently original take, at least for me. It's like one part Roller Coaster Tycoon and another part Out of the Park Baseball or some other management style game. I was initially pretty worried when researching the game, as it is a mobile port from a company called Kairosoft Games, a Japanese studio that's been making games like this since the 90s. They are a bit of a mixed bag as they rush out a ton of similar games, all with just slightly reskinned themes. As you can see here, their goal seems to be to make as many of these games as possible, with themes ranging from baseball to tennis to ramen and game development. That rushed feeling is where this game begins to stumble quite a lot, which I'll get into here. First of all, the game does a pretty bad job of explaining how to play it. Even with the bare bones tutorial, there is a lot you just have to kind of figure out for yourself. The poor English translations don't help at all, and it takes a commitment longer than most are probably willing to try to understand what on earth you should be doing with your time. However, by far the biggest issue is the complete lack of technical polish for porting the game from mobile to Switch. The weird mix match of text fonts, repetitive music, and most importantly, the lack of any attempt to change the controls or menus makes the game play like a glorified emulation. It's playable, but incredibly frustrating at times and clearly a quick cash grab by Kairosoft to tap into the Switch market. Despite its obvious flaws, I do see why there's a market for a game like Home Run High. It is a laid-back affair that has some interesting enough themes with it that could be potentially attractive to the right gamer. I personally love baseball games and simulation games, so I did find some enjoyment with it, but the incredible amount of automation led to the complete lack of a feeling that I had much of an influence on anything that was happening, which made the game less rewarding than I initially thought it would be. This, combined with the utterly embarrassing lack of technical polish when porting the game from mobile to Switch, really makes the game fall flat and ultimately a huge missed opportunity to make something more memorable. I really could go on and on about why Dodgeball Academia is such a wonderful experience all around. Every aspect of the game is incredibly charming, which when paired with a fresh and surprisingly deep dodgeball gameplay experience, the result is one of my favorite games of the year. The attention to detail and clear amount of care that went into the game is even more evident when paired up against something like Home Run High, which is the definition of a rushed mobile port, even at a similar price point. There are some things I liked about it, but Home Run High is a very specific style of game that I cannot universally recommend unless you have a full understanding of what a Kairosoft game is and are willing to accept the many flaws that come with it.